The biggest issue in a setting like 40k is trying to capture how powerful some of the factors are in the setting, since sure, you can present an autonomy of a species or explain how powerful a weapon is using magic words, but at the end of the day, it can feel numb. Especially when everything is taken to 11, the elite soldiers or powerful weapons will start to feel less special when they get mowed down in the thousands, or the weapons end up being ineffective against the villain of the week. Usually when you get to this point, it's nice to stop and scale it back a bit, focus on the more smaller situations that don't involve the fate of the planet or galaxy. Which brings us to the Astartes project. To me, it's still one of the best animations of 40k that most official ones hasn't gotten close to. Although the quality that GW has been producing has gotten better, it can never truly match the genius in this direction. So let's grab our bolters and combat knife and delve into why Astartes project holds up years later. The plot and the story is as simple as you can get, where a Space Marine chapter known as the Retributors are going after a vessel containing the leader who fled the planet Argosa. This is because they caused a rebellion, where the Imperium managed to contain it but not eradicate it, which is nicely detailed to show how dangerous and destructive this was, and the Imperium wants retribution for their actions. Once the ship is located, they begin boarding it and plow through the defenses to reach the supposed leaders, but are nothing more than just an extension of the real mastermind. Once killed, they reach the orb, where it's being controlling the minds of the ship. As they probe to discover its secrets, the orb lasts such efforts to transport the squad to most likely to the Eye. That's pretty much the whole story. Now it sounds like there isn't much to it, but that isn't the focus for the animation. It's just to set the stage for the action. One of the issues that I talked about earlier is trying to capture the power skill of 40k, especially into animation. This is something that GW struggles with quite a lot, since they don't know how to direct them to make them feel like elite soldiers. Since they seem to believe the best method to demonstrate power is by having them to be in combat as quickly as possible, charging at the enemy despite the best move to be in cover, especially the enemies are inflicting casualties. There are some cases where it's fine and does work in showing pure raw power, but I believe it needs to capture more than just that, being tactical. In the Astartes project, he managed to make them feel like elite soldiers by having them come up with competent and efficient ways in taking out the enemies. This is accomplished by simply using their guns and taking out targets from a distance, instead of charging like a bunch of corn berserkers. One example is where the ship defender set up a heavy weaponry and it was doing damage to the sergeant's armor, so he simply got to cover, drew a flash grenade, he estimated where it was located, and killed them. If GW wrote this scene, they'll have Gabriel Seth use his brother's corpse as a shield to reach them so he can hit it with a chainsword. When close combat is used, it actually makes sense, where we have a scene seeing actual tactics implemented in fighting against the Psyker automatons. The Retributors notice bolters won't penetrate the Psyker shield, so they continue firing to get their attention long enough for the other brothers to get close and kill them. This resembles a lot like something that the Lord tend to compare them quite a lot to wolves, since they feel like a hunting pack in this scene, probing at their defenses looking for any weakness to deliver a fatal blow. However, it takes two to tango, because what helps Space Marines in being elite is how equally competent the enemy were, since something that a lot of modern writers need to know, it would never feel satisfying seeing enemies not being intelligent, or at the very least trying. Oh boy, in this case, they've tried their very best. They surrounded the boarding pod, setting up choke points and ambushes only for them to barely slow them down. Even their elites, being the Psyker automatons, gave the Astartes a difficult time, being competent as them, but eventually were defeated. As a whole, the only thing the defenders accomplished is slowing them down and scratching the sergeant's armor. If this were the Imperial Guard boarding them, they would have meant high amounts of casualties. This ship would have been a nightmare to attack for a regular human army, even their best elites among them. You could even say it probably had a good chance in repelling the attack. For this reason, and the Xeno orb inside the ship, it makes sense why Space Marines are being sent to board the ship. We can see why they are viewed as powerful resources in the Imperium, being sent in important missions like this, so the Imperium wouldn't burn through so much of their manpower and resources. Eventually, the Astartes were pretty much defeated by the orb, doing some last effort in trying to preserve itself, absorbing the Astartes into the orb and teleporting God only knows where they could be. This also helps pretty much in capturing how truly dangerous this universe is. As much as the Astartes are incredibly powerful, there are some cases they won't be able to predict everything, facing enemies that could be far more superior than them. One one thing needs to be credited is the direction, because he managed to make the animation where it's both friendly to new fans but also captivate the same level of engagement for older fans. For newer fans, everything will be technically new for them. However, there are some situations or stories that require some level of explanation. A great example is Death of Hope. Now, the animation is pretty good with an amazing art style capturing the grim dark of this universe. The problem is that it requires you to read quite a few books of the Horus Heresy to get an idea of what's going on. This meant for those who enjoy the Horus Heresy, or at the very least knows a good amount of the lore, to understand the animation. If someone were new watching this, they'll enjoy the darkness of this universe but won't really understand what's happening. Also, since we're in the conversation in Death of Hope, it's truly a shame that we could never see his vision for part 2, due to Gedalia at the time heavily cracking down on people that were making fan animations, pulling pretty much a Nintendo. Getting back on track, the plot is made simple, being a boring story without tying to any events that could be happening in 40k. This is easier to digest for people watching this animation and understanding what's happening. However, one thing ties together to new and old fans of the series managed to captivate the same level of engagement is simply creating a new enemy to be facing against. The automatons and the orb, despite not being in the lore, well, back then, since they're canon now, were intriguing to watch since it was something new we haven't seen before, so we tried to piece as much as we can to understand what exactly they are. For me, I think the orb is a xeno-warp creature using a psychic ability to control the automatons, like how the Hive Mind uses the Tyranids. Easily the most striking part of the Astartes project, made impressive how it was made by a single dude. The quality feels like it belongs in the television. There's so much detail packed into this animation, something as simple as the sergeant's service studs. Same level of attention is given to the lore, where the sergeant vomits blood only for it to quickly clog, since it shows their healing ability. The Astartes have some weight and feel like a powerful force that the Xeno desperately tries to hold one of them. Slightly letting go of its attention, the knife gets closer to its neck, and when the orb pushes them back, they still continue walking towards it. Not only the animation is able to capture the detail, but the sound effects as well. The bolters feel powerful, even though the weapons have some chunk in them. You can feel the wait for the Astartes as they walk or run. All of this adds so much life into the animation. There's a clear level of love to this universe for how much effort poured in trying to bring it to life. With all of these layers, it's why I consider the Astartes project still being the best animation. Not just because the quality of the product is nice to look at, but being the direction, the attention to detail, and the intelligent creative choices. Thanks for watching, and bye.